Assalamualikum. Hi, I'm social worker Sumon Ahmed Oli. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Social Worker Sumon BD TV. Kaaba Mosque Kaaba Religious Freedom in Islam, the Witness of the Qur'an and the Prophet. Prat-1. The words of the Qur'an and Hadith contain rich resources for supporting the democratic order. If Muslims are to embrace modernity, including life in a pluralistic, democratic society, without abandoning their faith, they must take up the argument for religious liberty that is embedded in their history and that stands at the center of their most sacred texts. Although the broad thrust of the Qur'an and Hadith supports religious liberty, many parts of these texts can be, and traditionally have been, interpreted as denying it. One example is a Qur'anic verse, 9:29, that deals with the question of the Jizyah, a tax on non-Muslims. Fight those who believe not in Allah nor the last day. Nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and his messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the Jizyah with willing submission. And feel themselves subdued. The Prophet reportedly sometimes demands the death penalty for apostasy, the most obvious example of this being the Hadith, whoever changes his religion, kill him, Bukhari, Sahih, 9:84, Hadith 57. Such problematic texts are outweighed by the bulk of the texts and instruction provided by the two most important authorities in Islam, the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad's actual practice. Both are remarkably supportive of the idea of individual and personal religious freedom. Human freedom and dignity. The bedrock of the Islamic case for religious liberty is the Quran's vision of the human person. The Quran's anthropology, which is shared by Christianity and Judaism, views every human being as a creation of Allah, blessed with intellect and free will. Allah created humans in the best of molds, 95-4, and in doing so honored humanity and conferred on it special favors, 17-70. The Quran emphasizes that human beings have inherent worth and dignity. Further, it holds that Allah gave humankind the intellect and ability to discern between right and wrong, 17:15, 6-104. The Quran emphasizes free choice. The truth has now come from your sustainer. Let, then, him who wills, believe in it, and let him who wills, reject it, it says, 18:29. And also, whoever chooses to follow the right path follows it but for his WWN good, and whoever goes astray goes but astray to his WWN hurt, 17:15. Resoundingly. The Quran declares that there shall be no coercion in matters of faith, 2-256. Belief is an individual choice, or, rather, it is a choice involving the individual and Allah. Therefore, forced conversions are simply unacceptable, and anyone who would use force rather than persuasion to promote religion must ignore the view of the person central to the Quran. Coercion. The capstone of the Quranic case for religious liberty is the fact that not even the Prophet Muhammad could impose or force people to profess Islam. When people were unreceptive to the message of Islam, the Quran explicitly reminded him that he was never to resort to coercion. Your task is only to exhort, you cannot compel them to believe, 88-21. Evidence from Islamic history suggests that this view was held not only by Prophet Muhammad but also by his political successors. In one recorded example, an elderly Christian woman came to see the Caliph Umar and then refused his invitation to embrace Islam. He became anxious that she might have perceived his invitation as compulsion. "O my Lord Allah," he said, expressing his remorse, "I have not intended to compel her, as I know that there must be no compulsion in religion. Our righteousness has been explained and distinguished from misguidance." Unfortunately, many Muslim-majority countries have failed to follow the Prophet's example. Muslims in these states face penalties for blasphemy, heresy and, most famously, apostasy. Non-Muslims are barred from proselytizing and possessing or importing unsanctioned religious items, including Bibles. They face restrictions on the public practice of religion and strict limits on the building or renovation of places of worship. The government monitors their religious activities, raids private services and sometimes harasses or imprisons non-Muslim believers simply for practicing their faith. But the Quran says much to undercut such restrictions. On a practical level, it repeatedly emphasizes the role of the Prophet as teaching people about Allah rather than forcing them to convert to Islam. The Apostle is not bound to do more than clearly deliver the message entrusted to him, 24:54. Similarly, it urges readers to pay heed, then, unto God and pay heed unto the Apostle, and if you turn away, know that our Apostle's only duty is a clear delivery of this message, 64-12. In fact, the Quran appears to afford a high degree of freedom to non-Muslims under Muslim rule, particularly Jews and Christians, sometimes known as the people of the book. Its relatively tolerant position gave way to restrictions that emerged approximately 100 years after the death of Muhammad. At the time of the Prophet, the Qur'an clearly distinguished between those non-Muslims who were hostile to the emerging Muslim community and were prepared to use violence against it, and those non-Muslims who desired to live peaceably. In passages from the last 2 years of the Prophet's time in Medina, 631–32 CE, the Qur'an encouraged, even commanded, Muslims to bring these hostile forces under the authority of the Muslim state. However, even when exhorting Muslims to fight their opponents, the Qur'an did not suggest that those engaged in hostility should be forced to convert to Islam. Indeed, it drew a sharp line between enforcing recognition of state authority and forcing any change of religious belief. See you aging, social worker Sumon.